Hello Animorphs fans and welcome back to the Animorphs Reviews YouTube channel. Today we're talking about what every single title means or refers to. Because something I have seen from a few Animorphs fans in the past is it just seems to be completely random how they name these books, as if they've got nothing to do with the contents of the books themselves. So this is the video where I go through every single book and try to establish what all the titles mean. Let's get the easy ones out the way. Firstly, Animorphs Meet the Stars. What could that possibly mean? You read basically biographies about the Animorphs cast. Done. Easy. Alternamorphs 1. The first journey. It is the first journey for you as the character, whoever you end up being. And it's also the first Alternamorphs. So the first journey is pretty obvious. The next passage is essentially a sequel to the first journey. Journey, passage, first, next. Again, pretty obvious. The Andalite Chronicles. I do apologise for the screen making everything smaller. The Andalite Chronicles is the Chronicles based on Elfangor, who is an Andalite. Done. We aren't going to go so quickly through all of these because we're just getting, some of them are going to be more difficult than others. Hork-Bajir Chronicles. It's the Chronicles based around the Hork-Bajir and their fall to the Yeerks. Visser. It's about Visser 1. Elmist Chronicles. It's about how the Elmist came to be, hence the Chronicles. Megamorphs 1. The Andalite's Gift. This is a vague title. The Andalite's gift being the power to morph. This is early in the series, remember. But also, a large part of this book is the idea that the Veleek, the big Saturn mincing creature, was attracted to the morphing power, which turned out to be the Andalite's gift. So it is integral to the storyline. I mean, what else could it be? The Andalite gift of, oh, we'll just let loose these parasitic aliens loose across the galaxy. I mean, it's sort of a gift. Not a very nice one, though. But I'm pretty sure that's about the morphing power. Next. In the Time of Dinosaurs. Obvious? Yeah, I think that one's obvious. Pebble agrees.
I like that one.
Elfangor's Secret. Do you remember this book, my dear? What was Elfangor's Secret? The time matrix. He hid it in the construction site. It was his little secret. So, Elfangor's Secret. Back to before. Well, they go back to before this all kicked off. Right, now we're going to get into the interesting stuff. So, all those books prior, Megamorphs and Chronicles, they're pretty easy. A lot of these are easy too. So, the invasion is pretty obvious. It's when we learn about the invasion, which is a pretty big topic to these kids at this particular time. The Visitor. Who could the Visitor be referring to? Could it be referring to Visser 3 or Chapman? No, it refers to Rachel, who is a visitor in the Chapman's house. You look confused, Pebble. She visits the Chapman's house. She goes into Melissa's house as a visitor. Visitor.
I think it's not really a visitor, more as she's breaking and entering with a cat.
Yeah.
Marcia does that.
Marcia does that, does she?
Look at those breaking and entering toes.
Breaking and entering toes. But I'm pretty sure the visitor refers to Rachel going into the Chapman's house. The Encounter, I think, is pretty obvious. He encounters on one of his little birdie treks a massive tanker, fueler, water supply ship. And that was the Encounter. The Message, I think one of the most obvious ones. They received the message from Axe. Next is probably the first one that you have to spend a bit of time thinking about. The Predator. Because you wouldn't look at Visser 1 and instantly just think Predator. You'd think leader or big boss or something like that. The word Predator is a bit more of a specific word. And I thought about this and I looked through the rest of the book and there's a theme going throughout this whole thing. The theme of predator and prey. Because they go hand in hand, really. Predator and prey. So you have the start where Marco fights off the guys attacking the old man. The prey. The guys attacking with a predator. Then you've got the lobster bit. Where the woman is about to eat the lobsters. Predator and prey. You've got Axe eating all the food in the mall. Predator and prey. The mall cops. Etc. Etc. Visser 1 is the predator and Earth is the prey. Visser 1 is the big head honcho above Visser 3, one of the most highest ranking Yeerks, the ultimate predator to Earth. What is it, my dear?
Lila is a shrimp predator.
Lila's a shrimp predator, is she? Oh dear. But yeah, I think that's what I think the predator is referring to Visser 1 in a metaphor of predator and prey. The capture. Jake gets captured by the Yeerks, my dear. The stranger. I'd say the Elemis is a bit of a stranger at first. They don't know him too well. And he's a bit strange.
You sure they're not talking about the crazy lady in the woods?
That was Megamorphs. That was Megamorphs, my dear.
Oh, Megamorph.
You're no longer the #1 Animorphs fan.
I was thinking of the bear. For some reason.
Well, I wasn't. The alien. It's the first time we really get a full Axe narration, and he's doing alien things in an alien world. I think it's a pretty obvious title.
Terrible design for Andalite.
Terrible design for Andalite. It's the first one, isn't it?
It's awful. Just look at that. No.
It's not too different to how it would end up being. The Secret. Now, I had to think about this one. Do you remember this book?
Yeah.
What's The Secret? The secret is the trap. Because the guy they're trying to get in to convince to say yes to the lumber project, Farrand, is being lured in, but he has no idea what the thing actually is. At the start of the book, there's this whole thing about rats going into a maze, and they can't smell the piece of cheese at the end of the maze because there's a fan blowing it away. In this story, the true intention of the lumber company is that piece of cheese. And the Yeerks are, like a big fan, blowing the scent away, so Farron can't see this trap at the end of this maze he's heading down.
Wouldn't the secret be that, it's hard to explain. Because Cassie ends up killing the termite queen in that, didn't she?
Yeah, she killed the termite queen in that.
That she's not 100% moral, I guess.
How is that a secret?
She tries to always act like she's really moral and she always does the right thing, and then she doesn't.
Yeah, I did think about that, but I couldn't find a way for that to be a secret of sorts. I think, yeah, the idea that there's this lumber company, but actually it's a trap to lure this guy in, to infest him, to carry out a thing. It's a loose one. It's a very loose one, which is why I struggled with it, but it's the only thing I could really see being secretive about it. The android. They find Eric, who is a Chi, and they are androids.
It's not the wolf spider android.
What? You're just wibbling on over there. Is that the wolf spider? Yes.
The wolf spider is the android.
No, it's a spider, my dear.
It's a spider android.
Are you going to let me crack on with this video, or are you going to keep wibbling in the background? Right, the Forgotten. They went for a Saria rip, and I'm pretty sure everyone apart from Jake forgot this whole experience. So, the Forgotten. And quite frankly, it's a forgettable book. The reaction. She has an allergic reaction to a morph. The reaction. The change. By the way, I am going to eventually do a video, just talk about these taglines. Be afraid, ... I was afraid from the freaking beginning. Why am I being told to be afraid now? Anyway, the change. A lot changes in this book. A lot. So I think it's actually a pretty appropriate title. The Unknown. They have no idea that it's a freaking Andalite toilet they're going for. It's just an unknown thing. The whole area is unknown. It's Area 51 basically. And there's this unknown object in there. Yeah, obvious. The Escape. Now this one was a bit more difficult. This was the first one where I was like, oh, damn. What is this one referring to? After the secret, actually. But I had to look at the plot synopsis to find what exact, because they escaped from lots of things. Because I remember they were on this island with the sharks, and that they got away in the end. But surely you wouldn't name the book just after the fact that they got away in the end. That's not really important. But when you take into account how they ended up in that place in the first place, they were in Shark Morph, and then suddenly they got stuck in like this invisible conveyor belt and dragged into this island. And so from that point on, it's just a case of getting out. So it is a bit more escapey. Again, it's quite loose. But what else are you going to call it? The sharks? The Sharknado? The psychic frog? I mean, the escape, yeah, it's loose, but it vaguely applies, so I get it. I get it. The warning. I discussed this in my review of that book. I think it's quite obvious. There's a few warning signs that shit's about to go down in this book. Big moral questions that they hadn't quite faced before. The whole Gump thing at the end where Cassie has to lie to or tell him to stop trusting his father. There's a lot of big moral questions that turn up in this book which basically foreshadow some of the big decisions that are to come. A warning, as it were, to the Animorphs that things are about to get real. If you want to see more about why I think it's called that, go watch my book 16 review. The Underground. They're underground for quite a lot of this book. That's it. That's it.
Not a great title.
And Rachel is scared of being underground. I suppose that adds a bit more weight to why it's called that, but still, it's a bit loose and whatever. The decision, Axe's decision of, oh, I'm on an Andalite spaceship. Do I trust these guys or do I trust those guys? The decision's made for him really by the end when they turn out to be vicious traitors and the entire ship dies. Sort of makes the decision a little bit easier. But for a while there, he thought he had to make a decision. Hence, the decision. Do you agree? Yes? It's funny, you talk a lot when I don't need it. And then when I ask you a question, you're... The departure. Cassie leaves the group and buggers off with a Karen. The discovery. The Escafil device is discovered, not by the Animorphs, but by David. Which leads to the whole David trilogy, in which he becomes a bit of a threat in the threat to the Animorphs. And then in book 22, they have to come up with a solution to that threat. Simple. Book 23, The Pretender. The person pretending to be Tobias's... It's Arya, isn't it? Arya? What was she supposed to be to Tobias? Not his mother.
No.
Some relative.
Yeah.
Some relative somehow. But either way, it's Vista 3 pretending to be related to Tobias.
It seems like something that Visitor 3 wouldn't bother with.
One of the big criticisms I have for this book was Vista 3 being out of character. Yeah. But it's also weird how this happens and... yeah, I'd have to look back into this book. But it's obvious why it's called The Pretender. And that's the point of this video. This one. This is the one book that I have not even come up with the foggiest idea why it's called The Suspicion. Do you remember what this book's about? It's the Helmicrons. And it's called The Suspicion. What's the suspicion? They find a toy ship, find out it's got aliens on it, and then proceed to have a bit of a rough and tumble with these aliens before being shrunk, and then later managing to unshrink themselves and book over. I don't know where the suspicion comes in. What do they suspect?
Marsha, what do you think?
What do you think, Marsha? Boop. Yeah, I can't... This is the one that I'm going to open up to you, the audience. After you've watched this video, and you've left a like, and you've subscribed, and you've left a comment saying how wonderful I am, I want you to also comment saying what the hell this means. This is the only one on this list where I haven't got some sort of explanation as to why it's called what it is. I have no idea. And you know me. I like to put patterns where patterns don't exist. I'm that sort of guy, aren't I? I will make a pattern for something that isn't even supposed to have a pattern. I love doing that. I look for patterns. I cannot find a pattern for this.
That's why you love your conspiracies.
That's what, yeah, exactly. But I can't find that. So help me, please, audience. This is the only one I've been completely lost on. The extreme. They go into a rather extreme environment. The very cold. That's basically it for that one. The attack. Now, this one was fun. Why do you remember this one? This is one, the Escort.
I like that one a lot.
What happens at the end of the book is the Howlers learn a new attack. The kiss attack. What is one of the most memorable and important parts of this book? The moment where Jake and Cassie kiss each other. So I think it's quite a fun little play on words that they've done here, where instead of just calling the book The Kiss, they refer to the Howler's new attack and call it The Attack. As in, the kiss attack. The kiss. Yes, my dear?
I'd like to change a career. I want to be a professional shopper.
You want to be a professional
Like
shopper?
The Escort.
Like the Escort?
People have to buy the things that are made.
Grand input, my dear. Well made.
Commercial agrees with me.
You damn capitalist. Anyway, but that's why I think it's called The Attack. Not for the reasons you'd think it was. I think it refers to the kiss, which seems strange, but when you... Yeah, if you know the book, you know what that's about. The Exposed. The Chi become exposed. Their holograms start to fail. They're exposed. Big problemo. And they sort it out. The Experiment is when Visifree is experimenting on monkeys to find out if he can change free will. Yeah, filler shit. And cows. The Sickness, they all get everyone's tree glands get infected, even though only Andalites have tree glands. That's the Sickness. The Reunion. Marco talks to Visser / his mother again. They are briefly reunited. That's basically all it. That's basically that one. The Conspiracy. Now, this is another interesting one, because I thought, what's the conspiracy here? And now I looked up what conspiracy means, and it basically just means a secretive group planning to use unlawful or harmful means to achieve an end. And that happens on both sides. Both sides are desperate in this book. So the Yeerks are desperate because they need to save Tom's Yeerk, and the Animorphs are desperate. You're over there. Oh. And the Animorphs are desperate to save Jake's father. Both sides are desperate, and they resort to means that they wouldn't otherwise do. Harmful, not illegal in their own way thing. Whatever. Pfft. Words. So, the Animorphs torture Chapman, and the Yeerks plan to assassinate someone on their lawn in broad daylight. Things that, you know, are a bit out of the ordinary for both sides. And I think that's why it's called The Conspiracy. Next up, The Separation. Why is it called The Separation, my dear?
Well, she gets cut in half with a shovel.
Because she gets cut in half with a shovel, and filler proceeds. Character destroying filler proceeds. The Illusion. This is yet another very interesting one. Because an illusion is another word that I had to look up just to make sure I was on the right lines. Illusion is misleading visions or perceptions. Misleading. What in this book, where Tobias gets tortured, is incorrect, misleading, a vision that they've seen?
They convinced the Yeerks that he didn't need more of an Andalite to convince them that he was an Andalite, but he isn't.
You could say that. I put it down to the Utsum thing, because Tobias gets loads of flashbacks. That Axe calls the Utsum, which is like a memory that Elfangor planted into his head. But the funny thing about the memories that Tobias sees is that they're all wrong in some way. Like, in Elfangor's memory, he kills Taxons first when that's not actually correct. And Marco said something that was actually incorrect as to how he actually said it. The only problem with that idea is those things that he gets wrong there are also mentioned incorrectly in other books. So this book is shit, and it probably gets things wrong just because it got things wrong and wasn't written very well. What else could it be? The illusion that Taylor and the Subvisor hold because they think they're one combined being, and that's what makes them go a bit nutso. There's that shared illusion. There's a few little things that could be seen as forms of illusion in this book, and I think that's why the name was chosen. I'm tempted to actually read this book again, not only because I want to find out what this whole illusion thing is and the Utsum thing, but also I want to see if I've given this book if I've done this book an injustice, especially the latter half. The first half is shit. Plot-wise, it's a freaking train wreck, but I want to read that latter half again just to see if I missed anything, because I get the feeling I might have.
Might have missed some emo.
Might have missed some emo, yes. Oh, Mr. Cynic over there. Right, so next one, The Prophecy. Again, another one that I had to really think about. As we get into the 30s, it becomes more of a problem.
My dear, just because you're 30 now doesn't mean your memory's going.
Woman. Go make I need another drink.
Well, unfortunately for you, Lilas, isn't it?
God. I'm surrounded by women and cats. Well, one woman and 4 cats. Life is bothersome.
My dear, 3 of the cats are women.
Exactly. There's only one bloke cat. It's just me and Tiggles hiding in a corner.
But Tiggles likes me more.
Bollocks. Right, anyway, you're distracting me again, woman. The Prophecy. This is quite a difficult one, but I've got some ideas. So, Aldria doesn't know where the weapons cache is hidden, but she has an idea where it might be hidden, and it's in where the love note that she and Dak had together is. So that's sort of prophetic, because she doesn't actually know where it is, but she's got a good idea of where it would be. It's a bit loose. It is. But also you could consider that how Dak and Aldria's relationship is quite prophetic as to how Jake's and Cassie's might end up. Even though they don't end up quite the same. Well, they survive, for a start. Yeah, this is an unusual title. It's one that I'm going to throw over to you as well. But there are a few little bits that might hint towards prophecy. It's not like The Suspicion. I've got absolutely no idea, no clues whatsoever. This one, at least, I'm looking at a few things saying, okay, that could fit there. That could be prophesying this, that, and t'other. The idea of this is what the Hawk-Bajir homeworld looks like. They were the previously infested race. This is the Animorphs seeing a prophecy as to what will happen to Earth should things go tits up. Again, it's quite loose, but it can sort of apply. There's also... Now, I looked at a poster. When I was doing research for this one, I saw a poster, and I will flash it up on the screen now. And it advertises 4 books: The Proposal, Visser, The Prophecy, and The Hawk-Bajir Chronicles. Funny how those 2 books were released. Well, that one was reissued, but basically issued at the same time. As well as Visser and The Proposal, it was as if they did those 2 Chronicles books, released them, both the original and a reissue, at the same time as these 2 books, because they knew that they operated in tandem. The Proposal and Visser go side by side. This one and Hawk-Bajir Chronicles go side by side. But on this poster, there's a little bit at the bottom that says, put this in a mirror and see what it says. And what it says is, there is a thread that connects us all. Very interesting line when you consider some of the stuff that happens in The Ellimist and The Andalite Chronicles, because you remember, my dear, with the whole Ellimist thing where he's in basically this place and everything is a thread. Everything is connected by threads. And funny how this book and the Hawk-Bajir Chronicles comes with this message of there is a thread that connects us all. is that part of this prophecy thing? Because remember that at the end of this book we get another free Hork-Bajir colony. Are they part of this on the Hork-Bajir homeworld? Maybe that's part of this big thread, and maybe that's part of the reason the Yeerks end up getting defeated in the end. Because remember, by the end of the series, a few plot lines just got sort of sidelined. Maybe there was more going to go in with this plot line in particular. Because remember, the thread connects us all, my dear. It's all connected.
Sure is.
And I think there was more to this than we're actually seeing. I think it's largely to do with the Ellamist. And I think that's partly where the name, the prophecy, came from. Again, I've got vague ideas, but it's one of the more difficult ones. The proposal. There's a proposal. The mutation can refer to a couple of things. Firstly, Garfilat, I believe was it? No, Huntunad was part of Visifree's experiments where he mutated Hork-Bajir to have gills. Didn't work. So there's one mutation. The Nartex were humans, but they evolved, mutated to live underwater and do the weird things that they do. And also the idea that the Animorphs have mutated in their own ways during the course of this war. And this is the Jake book where we start to see some of those changes and how he's playing this tug-of-war with his team. And after this point, he does do a lot of changing. Remember, we've got the familiar coming up for Jake after this one. So I think it also goes for that. So I think this one works on multiple levels. I like it. The weakness. This is the weakest book of the series. Obviously, I don't think the author wanted that to be the reason it was called The Weakness, but it also applies to the fact that when Jake buggers off, yeah, they basically fell apart, and maybe that's a weak part of the Animorphs team. Their biggest weakness, Rachel being leader. Pretty big weak spot. So, yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. The arrival. The Andalites finally arrive at Earth. Problem is, it's not quite what you'd expect. You like that one? I like that one as well. The hidden. The blue box. It's hidden. And Cassie proceeds to try to hide it under her top. And apart from that, I can't think of anything else. It's just them chasing a buffalo around, or a buffalo chasing them around all story. So this one I struggled with. The other. Do you remember this one? Why is this one called The Other? Part of me thinks that it's because you've got these two Andalites, one of whom Axe considers a vehicle or disabled. And what would you say about someone if you just sort of shrugged them off as, you say, oof, the other people? Now, I think... well, I'm not saying that. Axe is saying that. But I think I'm clutching at straws there, trying to find why it's called The Other. Because, again, it's one of those, it's like, what else can it refer to? The Other. Maybe they're just the other Andalites. Because we saw a group a couple of books ago. These are just the other Andalites. But even then, that just seems a bit weak for a book title. Oh, that other group. Granted, it is a filler book, so it might as well just be called, oh, that other thing. Might as well be. So yeah, that's why that thing is that, I think. It's just, Axe considers them other. And they're seen as the other. Basically it, I think.
Mersha, you're the other.
Mersha is the other. The familiar. This is an odd one. It's another one of those ones that could be seen as quite cryptic, which is not to be surprising with this book, because it's a very cryptic book. You've really got to delve into this one to follow the flow. The familiar, but basically everything in this Dream Secrets of Jake is a figment of what he knows. Everything in it is familiar in some way. And you also get that voice at the end. And if you know anything about the word familiar, you'll know that not only does it mean, oh, like something you've seen before, it also means essentially like a demon. Like a demon that sort of sits on your shoulder. This is my familiar.
A demon?
That's what they're officially... That's what the dictionary calls them. Oh, okay, freaking fairy, I don't know. But a magical being that just sort of follows you around and whatever. Maybe it refers to that, maybe, because we don't really know what that voice is at the end. I will eventually do a video talking about that in an Annie theory. But I think the bigger chance is that everything in this dream sequence is familiar to Jake in some way, but exaggerated or mutated. You're about to say something, my dear?
Fluffer is your familiar.
Fluffer is my familiar, is she?
Look at that belly. My dear.
I think my wife's drunk.
Look at that belly.
She's in one of those moods. Kitty. You're in kitty mood. The journey. They have a journey through Marco's body. Less said the better. The test. I think this is actually a really good title. Because in this book, pretty much all the Animorphs are exposed to a new level of doing something terrible. Largely Cassie, actually, because and the other Animorphs, because they're about to blow up the Earth pool. It's bigger than anything they've ever done, and it's a big test for them to see how far they would go with this plan, and for Cassie to see how far she would go to stop that plan when she knows it's going awry. She ends up almost beating a bunch of people to death at the end. It's a big test. And it's foreshadowing what's to come. So it's almost like a test going... It's like the test before the big thing. So I think it works on multiple levels. I think this is actually a pretty good title, even though it seems a bit vague at the start. The Unexpected, probably my favourite title of the series, just because I like to use it as a joke. This book was so unexpected. I didn't expect this book to be this good. I didn't expect Cassie to do that. Oh, in the unexpected. But it's just an unexpected turn of events. I think that's basically all it means. Could have been called The Outback, but that's probably a bit too on the nose and doesn't sound very Animorphs. I think Unexpected is... I think it's a suitable name. It is a bit vague, but it's fine. It's fine. But I'm pretty sure that's what it refers to. It just means... Did you expect Cassie to end up in Australia? Of course not. This is unexpected. The revelation. Revelation means revealing of something. Marco reveals everything to his dad, which of course we don't fucking see. We just get told after the fact, but whatever. Shit book. Moving on. The deception. This book revolves around a plan that the Yeerks have where they use an American submarine to fire upon a Chinese ship, therefore starting World War III to make the humans weaker, so that the Yeerk invasion becomes easier. The deception being tricking the Americans and the Chinese into thinking that they're shooting at each other.
They just nicked that from a James Bond movie.
Did they nick that from a James Bond movie? Cool. Bad authors. Naughty. Haha. But yeah, that's what that means, the deception. Pretty obvious. The resistance, again, another obvious one. The Hutt Bajir Valley is resisting the Yeerks as they encroach upon their territory. Best book of the series, in my opinion, and a good title for it as well. The return of Kryak, the return of Drode, the return of David, and most importantly, the return of Rachel from the abyss of crappy character development. She finally returns. Comes back from the character death. The diversion. Why was this one called the diversion again? This is another one of those difficult ones. I was thinking about this one earlier. And this book is largely about Lauren, Tobias's real mother. What happened to Lauren? She had her memory erased, and because of that, Tobias was handed off to his aunt and uncle. Why? I think it's made pretty obvious that her memory was erased deliberately via this car crash. Well, I don't know why the Elmist didn't just click his fucking fingers. He had to put her through a freaking car crash. Maybe to make it look more realistic, but surely there's a better way to go about it. Whatever. Maybe the diversion is the diversion that took Tobias on a different path. that took him away from having his own mother to being the kid he ended up being. Because, like the poster said, there's a thread that connects us all. Tobias needed to be put on a certain path to connect everything. The Elmer said, right, I need this character over here, but he's got a freaking mother. I can't be having that shit. Put her in a car crash. Ego's there now. And Tobias' path is diverted. The diversion. Because honestly, I can't think of another fucking way this title makes sense.
Oh, no.
I'm the crazy one now.
Yeah.
You in the back giggling and snickering, and now I'm the crazy one.
You always have that.
Yeah, fair point. The ultimate. I think that this one was another difficult one, but I settled on a reason why it's called the ultimate. Because this is where the ultimate last step is basically made. Giving the blue box to Tom. That is basically the final step before the climax, isn't it? Everything after this point is essentially a consequence of everything that leads up to that. This is basically where we enter the climax of the series, I think. And ultimately what sets into motion all the, Tom's defeat, the Yeerk's defeat, the Animorphs' victory, it all comes from this book, the ultimate. Yes, my dear?
What?
You look like you're about to say something.
Me passing out and saying something?
I guess I'm just expecting you to say more things at this point.
What? Toes?
Yes, my dear, toes. I think that's solely the reason this one's called the ultimate, because it is the ultimate. This is basically the key moment entering the last stage of the war. Now the next one is interesting. The absolute. Because thank you Hirak Delest, a source I've been using much more frequently recently. According to Hirak Delest, there are a couple of interns at Scholastic that wanted the name of this one to be the consequence rather than the absolute. It couldn't be called the consequence because the title was too long to fit on the book covers. Obviously a bit of a problem. But that was the only reason it was stopped. Why was it called the consequence? They explain the consequence of the ultimate decision. It actually follows the ultimate better than the absolute. So the ultimate leading into the consequence to the ultimate decision. That consequence being the Yeerks now have the ability to morph, and we see some of those consequences. Why then was it called the absolute, apart from the fact that it's a shorter name? The absolute, apart from it being an absolute catastrophe of a book. Is it another one that I don't really know? What does absolute mean? Right, okay. So I know what the word absolute means, but if you look at dictionary definitions, sometimes it just makes it that little bit easier to fit. So the dictionary says not qualified or diminished in any way. Total. Now, seeing it written in that way makes it easier for me to come to a conclusion what this book title actually means. It's all out war now. The governor tells people that it's all out war. It is total war now. It's no longer covert, even though the next book basically says it still sort of is. So, this book, the title of this book basically gets retconned by the next book. Again, it's another bad book, so I'm not that surprised. But yeah, it's called the absolute, I think, because it's now absolute war. It's not hidden anymore. It's out in the open. That's why I think it is. And then reset for the next book. The Sacrifice. The Sacrifice is the thing that they didn't do in the test, which was blow up the Yeerk pool. The biggest sacrifice. Killing all those innocent people. All those innocent hosts. That is the sacrifice to take that big step in the war. Pretty obvious title. The Answer. Jake finally figures out how to defeat the Yeerks. That's the answer. The answer to their problems. What are their problems? Alien invasion. Here's the answer. Here's how we're going to do it. And they do it. Another easy one. Thank you, my dear, for the intelligent input. And finally, the beginning. I do like this title. It's a bit cliche. That's the one thing I'll say about the title of this book. It is cliche. It's like calling the first episode or book or something the end. It's, yeah, it is a bit tropey. Maybe back then it wasn't. Maybe back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it wasn't so cliche, but I'd call it that now. But it's not that it isn't relevant, because we get the beginning of Animorphs 2.0, as I think somebody else coined, with Jean Gerard, Santorelli, Menderash. So it's the beginning of the next stage in the Animorphs' lives, in many ways. It's the beginning of life after the Yerks. Beginning of life anew, life with aliens. So it does apply in many ways. So I think that's pretty obvious. Anyway, that's all of them. The only one where I haven't given some sort of explanation is the suspicion. That's your homework, viewers. In the comments, I want you to tell me why you think that book is called The Suspicion. Please leave your answer to why it's called The Suspicion. If you disagree with any of my reasonings in this video, please do let me know. This was quite a popular option, because this one came from a poll of what video do you want to see next, and this one was the overwhelming winner, and I'm not surprised, and I really looked forward to making this one. And have you enjoyed yourself, my dear? There in the background, providing useless commentary.
Wow, that's exciting.
Is she excited, is she? Cool. I'm excited too. That's how excited I am. But yeah, disagree with me, tell me why, give me what you think the suspicion means, and it will become headcanon for me. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you next time. Ta-ra.